Okay, guys, welcome back to Let's Get Freaky podcast. Very excited. I've got two awesome guests tonight. We have got Erica Barrett with us and a returning guest that I'm very surprised I didn't realize. We've got Sara Sweeney with us back tonight. How are you?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I knew because obviously we booked this interview a few weeks ago. I only got the names today, which is my fault. And I saw your name and I was like, I know that name. I'm sure I know that name. And then as soon as I said, but welcome back. Thank you for coming back.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I had such a great time last time.
Awesome. Well, that's good then. At least you wanted to come back.
Yes.
Erica, this is your first time on the show. Do you want to start
Yes,
by just introducing yourself, telling us a little bit about you?
sure. So I'm Erica. I am a history loving person. That's kind of how I got into the paranormal. I was a history major in college, coming from chemistry. So honestly, like that's how I found my calling was I hated chemistry.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so Sarah had texted me a few years ago whenever we decided to start, and she has always been interested in the paranormal, and I've always been kind of scared of it. So it was kind of a cool task to start getting into it and like really studying it instead of just like being, at a distance.
hmm
Um, and yeah, so it's been really fun. We started our podcast together and then we were so fortunate to get invited to do Haunted Atlas and that has just been great. The Haunted US team is amazing and it's kind of cool because they write articles. That's their main thing. They write articles and those come out every Thursday and I think it's really interesting to do a podcast in conjunction with those articles because you just get even more of the factual history of the paranormal.
hmm Love that. So,
Yeah.
Sarah, do you want to reintroduce yourself to anyone that might not have heard your first episode? It was going back, I think it was around last Christmas. Actually, you were
Yeah,
last on the
I
show.
I think it was. It was a while ago. So yeah, so I'm Sara Sweeney. I am a co-host of Haunted Atlas, part of the Haunted US team, and also like Erica said, we have a separate podcast, Paranormal in Pennsylvania. And I have always loved the paranormal, had some childhood experiences, and my family has been very interested in the paranormal. So I was excited to continue to look at it. I'm a research scientist by training, so I try to take a critical lens when looking at stuff, always trying to debunk. But as all three of us know, there's some stuff that you just can't explain away. And
100%.
excited to be launching Haunted Atlas.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I like with you guys because you both come from a science perspective as well, which I think is really cool. You get someone like me that hasn't got a clue about anything, but it's you're coming at it from a clever angle, if that makes sense, and a critical thinking angle as well. Like I always jump up, Sarah, I said to you before, I always jump to the paranormal. Everything that happens, it must be paranormal, but sometimes there can be an explanation for these things, obviously. So
Yeah,
I
I
like
think
that.
but it's so hard, right? Because I think once you're a believer, it's like, oh, well, it must be. And sometimes I have to take a step back. And even when I think it does lean to the paranormal and I can't debunk it, sometimes I'll still say, well, it's considered soft evidence from an investigation,
Mhm.
unless it's like something concrete, like an EVP. But yeah, I always want it to be paranormal.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So for anyone that doesn't remember your episode, they need to go back and listen to it because you gave us great accounts of all your experiences. You saw the Hat Man in your classroom, if I remember rightly.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow, that's a great memory.
Yeah. And I think I called it Hat Man in the classroom. I think that's what I called the episode.
Oh, yeah, I think it is actually. I think I remember the image of
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah.
wild. A scary experience as well, for sure. And that was during
Yeah,
the day, wasn't it?
definitely. It was during school hours, and I think my teachers thought I was making it up or something was neurologically wrong with me. But my parents have always been on, like I said, they kind of walking the line. They're actually both scientists as well, but they do believe in the paranormal. And so I think, they were like, okay, are you having any other symptoms that could be causing you to hallucinate. And once they, I was fine.
Hmm.
It was like, okay, so let's take a look at this. And, my mom has always associated the Hat Man with a harbinger of death. So she was very concerned that I was seeing him so much.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we kind of just explored it from there. But I saw him a lot and it wasn't necessarily linked to negativity.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, that's good then. So since last time we talked, have you had any paranormal experiences in that year? It's been.
Yes. Yes.
Oh
And
wow.
we can tell you about an investigation that we did with the Haunted US team actually, and it was the Grand Midway Hotel, which is a hotel here in Pennsylvania. And Erica, I'll let you start.
Oh, yeah, it was honestly, so this was my first paranormal experience ever. I think
Wow.
as a kid, I was so closed off to it because I was terrified. And really, up until this point of being open to it more, I think I had just been closed off to experiences. And so this was a really cool thing. When I first got in there, I love vampires because I'm a huge Twilight fan. And
Yes.
so that was the room that I decided to go with, unfortunately for me, as we find out later. But yeah, so we caught an EVP in the vampire room. That was our experience. It was kind of
Wow.
incredible.
So
And Sarah, oh, I'm so sorry. Go
no,
ahead.
sorry, no, sorry. This place has got a vampire room. I've got to
Oh my
say.
gosh, yes. It is. So it's basically a themed hotel. There are rooms all throughout. There have to be what, like 10, 15 rooms, Sarah?
Yeah.
And they all have different themes. So there's, a fantasy gamer theme, a vampire room, a mummy room, which was really cool, a werewolf room, a demon room, which was interesting. That one had paintings in it of like demon-like figures, which was kind of scary.
Whoa.
Um, yeah, it was a really cool experience, even just being there without the paranormal experience. It was kind of cool just to walk through.
Hmm. Man, a demon room. I
Yeah.
would, I'm not staying in any of them rooms. That's for
No.
sure.
Yes. Yeah. I think when we were picking rooms, David and I decided to stay in the Frankenstein room because I was like, oh, it's like a lab. It's super cool themed. And
Yeah.
also, if you look at, they had like a bulletin board of all of the different paranormal claims. The one for the Frankenstein room was like a ghost that slams doors. And I was like, okay, I could do that.
That'll
That's
do.
better than a demon room.
Wow. So the what happened in the vampire room?
Oh, Sarah, do you want to go through how we got there? Because I was in the back and you were the
Yes.
one asking the questions.
Yeah, so what we were doing kind of as the process to try to collect, EVPs was doing a question session where we would ask the question, wait for the response. That way we can review it in the future, but also listening to what we might be hearing in the room. So we went, the four of us, it was Brandon, who's the head of Haunted US, David, Erica, and myself. We were sitting throughout the vampire suite because it has three rooms. It has a sitting room, the room with the bed, and then Erica was back in the coffin room. It's like through the closet, and they have coffins you can lay in.
Oh
Um,
man.
yeah, very cool. But
Oh.
we were asking questions and trying to figure out who was there because the hotel has a wild history. It was a brothel, it was a bar, it was a family home. So you never know who you're going to get. And in the spirit of trying to appeal to the spirits that might be there from the brothel, I said, do you want the guys to leave? Do you want to just talk to me and Erica? And Brandon thought maybe he heard something behind him. He couldn't tell if it was like the wind or something rattling a window, but we took that as a sign that the guys should take a step out. And then Erica and I went and did our own question session. Nothing else happened. And finally, I said, do you also want us to leave? And we decided to just leave after that. But during the playback, you can hear a voice say yes after I ask that question.
Oh man. Wow. So you didn't hear it at the time. It was when you was listening back and reviewing it.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah. I would not
That's
have slept in there had I heard it
no,
at
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
the time.
What did the voice sound like? Was it like, could you tell who it could have belonged to?
It was kind of a whisper, in my opinion. I don't know that there was a full tonality to it. It was almost like a whispered breeze type voice. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's freaky. So did
But
any?
then Erica did agree to sleep there and had a terrible night.
I did. I just could not fall asleep. So I would fall asleep and within seconds wake back up. And it was to the point where I ended up feeling so unwelcome. I had planned to leave at about 7 in the morning to get back to Pittsburgh for work. And I ended up leaving at like 4:30, I think. I left like 2.5 hours early because I was like, I
Wow.
just need to get out of here. And it wasn't until after we heard that I was like, maybe it wasn't just me not having
Yeah,
a
for
good night's
sure.
sleep.
Whoa. Was you on your own in there as well?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think I could sleep in a room with coffins. Even that would freak me out.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what, was you just getting a feeling like an unwelcome feeling? Was there, what was it?
Yes, and it was kind of like, you know how sometimes when you're falling asleep, you just feel like you're falling kind of and then you wake back up.
Yeah.
Every time I tried to go to sleep, that's what was happening. It was like
Yeah.
multiple times of me just like kind of getting there and then waking back up, kind of getting there and then waking back up immediately. And
Yeah.
so I guess, yeah, it was just feeling like I'm not supposed to be in here. Sleeping at least. Like somebody does not want me to rest.
Did you leave a light on or a TV or anything like that? Because I
I
definitely
actually
would.
did. I did. And what's funny about that room was it wasn't full lighting. There was like the lamps that were in there were very shaded by red shades. And so it was like very dim lighting in there, but I did have the lamps on.
Yeah. The vampire room. Stay away from
Yeah.
that one. Stay
Mhm.
away from that one.
Yes.
Did Sarah, did you experience anything in that hotel?
So there was an overall like eerie feeling, but the power of suggestion is definitely strong because not only are the rooms themed, but the owner is an avid horror collector. So it's two floors of the rooms and they're individual like galley rooms, for lack of a better term, back from when it was a brothel. And then there's a bathroom at the end of the hall. And we tried to split ourselves up between the floors. So the three of us were on one floor and Brandon was on another. And at the end of the floor, on like our floor, there was a Pennywise statue. So I
Oh,
had to say to myself every time I walked out of the bedroom before I turned, you're going to see Pennywise at the end of the hall. Um, but there was, an overall uneasy feeling. We didn't get anything else super concrete. We had some REM pod activity that we tried debunking with maybe interaction with another device. But I will say, David, who I guess for those listening might not know, he's my husband. He woke up in the middle of the night, he said, and thought he saw a woman standing next to our bed. And he said he actually thought it was Erica at first because we had said, if you get scared, just come wake us up and we can find a room that can accommodate all of us. But then he realized the woman was wearing old-fashioned clothing like 1910s. And that's right around the time that it was a brothel. And notably, one ghost there is named Martha. She was standing on the second floor during the 4th of July, and shrapnel from a firework flew onto the balcony and slit her throat, and she died. And so
wow.
she's known to haunt it. And so all night I was like, Martha, I really want to talk to you. And so he was saying he wonders if finally Martha was, standing and watching us, thinking, trying to get an idea for who we are and why we wanted to talk to
Wow.
her.
Wow. So David saw a ghost that night.
Yep.
Wow. Did he see that as a full-bodied apparition?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man.
And
Whoa.
again, that's where I think sometimes we're a little too skeptical because all of us, we talked about it in our debrief, and we were like, he's like, well, I had just woken up, so who knows, are you in halfway in dreamland? But that's where I guess I like to give the evidence and say
No,
listeners can decide
you saw a
what
ghost,
they think it
David.
is. That's what I
That's
say.
that's a ghost. Wow. Was that his first
Mhm.
experience? I'm sure you told me before he's had other experiences. Was
No,
that his first
yeah,
seeing an entity?
yes, I believe so.
Interesting. Has that changed his perspective on this sort of thing?
I think so. I think it just makes him have more faith in his own experiences because, again, we do put so much down to can we capture it on video or photo or audio? And I think part of it is feeling and
Hmm.
your own lived experience. So I think it definitely strengthens his
Yeah,
opinion in that.
yeah. I think there's something to us, like inside of us, that we know when something is going on around us that is not right. I think there's something in us. I'm not talking very scientific now, I know, but I feel like there's something in us that there's just a knowing that we have when it
Yeah.
comes to this sort of stuff. Like if you see something, you sort of know if it's your imagination or if there is something there, if that makes sense.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
I think a lot of reports sometimes that we are researching about these different places, a lot of people talk about gut feelings, and I think those are really valid. I
Hmm.
honestly, like, if you're getting the feeling that you should leave a place, you should probably,
Yeah, no,
and
I
so
agree.
I think it's so valid.
Yeah, for sure. It's like when people, and I'm sure you guys get this, you get a lot of pictures sent to you of people capturing entities like on their phones, their cameras, and they'll sometimes get a picture that to someone like me that wasn't there, that didn't experience anything at that time, and I'll be like, that's just a white blur. Or for example, you might get something like that. But for the person taking that picture who might have saw something or felt something, then captured something there that's like amazing to them. They want to show that because they experienced that. And I think so there's something to us experiencing it is we have a knowing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, for sure. Man, but do you think as well with places like that, the fact that you've got a vampire room, you've got Pennywise, you're do you think as we can also create this these feelings as well? That we're manifesting it as well?
I do think so, yeah. There's a room in there called the Canopy Room that we
Hmm.
haven't talked about yet, but that was technically, according to the hotel, the most haunted room in there. And a lot of people report seeing this life-size doll that's kind of in a rocking chair move. And there's also a statue in the corner of was it a nun, Sarah? Like a
Yeah, it's a nun.
Yes, and so multiple
Oh,
people have reported having dreams of this statue in while they're staying in this room. And I do think that those things could be paranormal. I also think someone having a dream about this really kind of eerie statue that's they're sleeping next to could also just be their brain kind of
hmm,
creating that dream, creating that image in their head.
yeah, yeah, 100%. It's like a lot of these haunted houses that have got history. Is it possible that the more paranormal teams that go somewhere, and I was talking to someone else about this recently, the more paranormal teams that go there, is it possible that we can actually create something and
Mhm.
actually like make a ghost, basically? Is that possible, do you
Yeah,
think?
I think so. I think the energy that people output with ideas like that, it's like if you tell yourself enough times that you're great, you're going to start thinking you're great. And I think it's the same way for people that believe in the paranormal and, like energy and spirits being trapped. It's if enough people are constantly believing that something is going to happen, I think it will. And that's again why we try to be so skeptical. Uh, because is it just a story that's been passed down over and over, or, are people still experiencing it?
Hmm. Yeah. So what else happened in that hotel that night? Anything else happen out of the ordinary?
I had, on the there was the second floor hallway, I think. There had to be like 30 or 40 deer heads, which was interesting to walk through. I mean, they were right on the wall. You're like walking between them. And I was standing up there with Brandon for some reason, and I felt something on my back. And I said, I think that might have just been my shirt, though, but I felt it multiple times while I was standing here. And then he kind of walked over to where I was standing. We kind of switched places, and he said he also felt it. And that was kind of a small thing that happened that night, but still interesting. We were both
Mhm.
like, okay, we both felt something in the same area. Could
Yeah,
be something.
yeah, that is interesting. I always find, like you say, the EVP that you call, I always find that interesting as well. Even if you've not heard it at the time, it's even probably more interesting that you've heard it after because
Mhm.
it's called that. And it's a lot of the time these things are responding to what you're saying. And how can you explain that? How can you just say, oh, that's a radio signal or, I mean, sure, sometimes there could be a
Yeah.
chance that you've picked up something that fits with the scenario that you're in, but it happens too much, man. Like, and all these
Yeah.
investigations, you guys seem to capture something like an EVP, something like that.
Yeah, and the perfect timing, I think, it's like I finish the question and then it's the response.
Hmm.
So the odds of that happening perfectly are slim. And especially I think when working with the paranormal, when you're talking with other people in the community that aren't afraid to say, oh, I had nothing that investigation, to me it gives more credit to them and not to like say we're great, but and to what we do present to people because we do try to debunk as much as we can.
Hmm.
And we're not going to put something out there unless we truly believe that it was paranormal.
Yeah. I think that's very important as well. That is important. So, Haunted US, tell us more about it. What is the plan? How big is the team and what's going on?
Go ahead, Erica.
Okay. Yeah, so Haunted US has been incredible. Brandon and Mitch are the Brandon is the main photographer for the website. So he kind of goes around to different sites and he takes the most beautiful pictures. And Mitch writes the articles and kind of researches and does a bunch of things. And Kat is the editor. And so and then it's us now, and it's me and Sarah and David. And so it's really, I think, just the six of us. And the site has been around, I don't know how long, Sarah. I don't know when they began.
Yeah,
But the
multiple years.
Yes. But the plan for Haunted Atlas is, every other Tuesday indefinitely, which is really exciting. And the fact that there's so many places in Pennsylvania for us to cover on our podcast, I can't even imagine how long it would take us to go through the entire US.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's really exciting. And I love that we get to branch out and do the entire country. I think that'll be a really cool experience.
Yeah. Then you can come to the UK as well. We've got a few
I
a
Yes.
few
want
spooky place
to.
few spooky places for you over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't made it to the UK yet still, but since we last talked, I did go back to Europe and I went to the catacombs in Paris, which was
Wow.
an incredible experience.
That's cool. Any spooky action there?
No, and I don't even know if I would have picked up on it if there had been because it was so one, I was nervous I was going to touch the bones by accident, and it's a federal crime to touch them. So I was nervous. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to turn and bump into it, and then they're all going to collapse, and then I've
Oh,
disrespected these people. But also, they do really pack it with people. So you're doing an audio tour, you're walking, you're trying not to hit anything. It's very narrow, low ceilings. And so I think I was so focused on trying to take in everything and the information that I wouldn't have even necessarily been open to it. I did get a headache down there, which David was like, maybe that's paranormal, but we were also in this musty corridor for like an
mhm.
hour and a half. So
Yeah. Yeah.
who's to say?
Yeah. Matt, so how often are you guys getting out to locations?
I
It
think that
really
we go ahead.
It
Oh
really
no.
does depend. There will be sometimes, like, summer, for example, where we can take a road trip and hit 3 or 4 locations in a single weekend. Um, And we might not be able to do a full-fledged investigation at them, but we'll be able to at least do a historical or paranormal tour, walk around the grounds, because we do really have a preference for places that at least one team member has been to, so we can speak to everything from the feeling to saying, are the cell doors of this old penitentiary able to move on their own? Do we think wind could move them? How heavy are they? And I think, again, when you're thinking of other people's paranormal stories, it's important to be able to talk to someone that's been there and debunk it. So I'd say peak season, we do 3 to 4 weekend, and then we typically taper off in winter, but we still try to do at least one a month.
That's cool. That's good. And are these going to be on YouTube to watch as well? Is that a
Not to
part?
watch, but you can listen on YouTube.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Interesting. So, Erica, in your bio, it said that as you said at the start as well, you're scared of the paranormal, and
Yeah.
I can totally relate to that because
Yeah.
as a kid, I was very scared, and I did have experiences, and I have had experiences throughout my life, but I'm still scared of it now. Like, it's still,
Yeah, fair.
even though I do a paranormal podcast and I talk about it literally every day, it
Yeah.
still scares me, but I still find it so interesting, so fascinating.
Yes. Yeah, I think my I think I figured this out recently. I think the interest in the paranormal, at least for me, and what I think may be for other people as well, is genuinely, I think we all want there to be like a deeper meaning of life, after we pass. And so I think that has really fueled my interest in it. And when we were doing the investigation, I really did keep that in mind of like, okay, if there are spirits here, they were people, they had stories, they had pasts, and I think it's like keeping that in mind and almost thinking of it like trying to find the deeper meaning of life, which I feel like is so deep, but genuinely
Yeah,
like
no.
trying to find the deeper meaning of life has kept it sort of realistic for me, where it doesn't feel as scary anymore, but I'm still definitely wary.
Yeah, 100%. The more you look into the paranormal, the more I think it looks back. So are you experiencing more activity that you might not have noticed before? Just little things, but seeing something in the corner of your eye, maybe stuff like that.
I haven't, not in just regular life, but I think when we do go to these places, I've been having more, I feel more open to things. So I've been maybe again kind of what we went back to where it's like soft evidence. I've been getting more feelings. I kind of like have that cobweb feeling on me when we're at places a little more frequently. And yeah, so when we're doing investigations and when I'm really there, I think yes. But even in my regular life, I may still be like sort of closed off if I'm not there for for that purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. That's cool though, because I mean, this stuff can be very scary, and to see stuff when you're chilling at home is not nice.
No, I'm not upset about it.
Sarah's experienced, I've experienced, and yeah, it's
Yes.
scary. As much as we love it, we don't want it in our house.
Right.
Yes.
But
Yeah,
I
and
think,
I think we've been pretty lucky with the places that we've done investigations. A lot of them, and this isn't a factor we used to choose, but a lot of the places that we have ended up doing investigations, the spirits there are typically very open. We did one at a place called the Vickery Mansion, and there was a medium there as well. And, she opened up by saying, I've been here multiple times. The spirits here are very open to people coming for paranormal investigations. So I think that that's also comforting going into stuff is, at least someone has an idea of who we're dealing with here and they're okay with us being here because
Mhm.
obviously respect is another big thing when it comes to the paranormal.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Does it worry you that you're going to bring something home? Does that ever?
I'm only worried about it because David has joked several times that he's gonna put something in my bag that he thinks a spirit's attached to.
Oh no.
Yes, and I live with that person.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think a lot of the times the spirits make sense with the location, not with necessarily an item or attaching to a person. So often I'm not too concerned. It's only when it's more of an identityless entity that I start to get nervous of who is this, what is this, and is it just kind of passing through this location?
Yeah. Interesting.
I think the respect sort of goes into that as well. Like your intention really matters. And I think that's why we do try to be so respectful at these places. Not only just because it's right, but of course because we don't want to upset any of the spirits that are
Hmm.
there and
Yeah.
then have them attached to us, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. You're not going to do the Zach Baggins. Call it out the demons.
No,
Yes.
I do that in Phasmophobia as a joke, and that will
Yeah.
be where that ends.
Yeah, no, I do. As much as it's super interesting, I do think it's dangerous as well. And as you guys are saying, you have got to be careful and respectful. And
Mhm.
I love the research that you guys do on locations. And Sarah, I was lucky enough to be on your show, um, and you told me more about a place that I'd had an experience when I was a little kid that I didn't know, in a church, and I've even gone blank on the name of the church now as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Greenstead Church in Essex.
wow, what a memory. Wow. Wow, that's wild that you remembered that on the spot there. And so
Yeah.
that was a very old church, and I've even forgot how old it was, which is terrible. Can you remember that?
Yeah, I think it was like 1100s, I think. All I
Yeah,
remember
Oh,
is
wow.
when I was researching it and they said there was a crusader buried out front.
that's it.
It blew my mind.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And I was like, wow. Because that's a very special church to my family. Like that was when my mum and dad got married. That was, a place we used to go because it was my nan's favorite place. And I had experiences that like feelings and stuff there. So yeah, that was cool to hear that you'd done that research, which I probably could have done if I'd spent a little time, but you taught me a lot. And I like that. I like that you look into places and you find out the history, and because the history is cool as well.
Yeah, that's what really, I think, made us want to join the Haunted US team, having, paranormal in Pennsylvania, is they take a very, very similar approach that we had taken of what is the history. We're all nerds at heart, and paranormal
Hmm.
nerds, history nerds. So taking a look at some other cool facts. And there's even, I don't think this episode has come out yet, but there's a one episode where we talk about the Boston cream pie and where that was first invented. So
Oh
adding
wow.
in those, little fun facts when you're talking about the paranormal, I think really gives character to the location and the spirits that might be there. You can picture what they went through, what they were doing, you can picture someone in the kitchen developing that for the first time. So
Hmm.
I think it really is important as well to think through all of the history because these places, I mean, not as much as the UK, but probably as documented stuff, but we have such history here
Hmm.
as well. We always say, if you're walking around, you're probably on a battlefield or on a burial ground or something.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I find American history so interesting as well. Like, I really do. Like, it's something. The older I get, the more I love history. I've watched more history stuff now than ever, and I find it so interesting, man. Especially the American history as well, how it started. Obviously a few people over here that wanted to get over there and start a new world, and it really is fascinating. So
Yeah,
I love it.
and that's something I love about Haunted Atlas is we cover such interesting locations that I might not have otherwise looked into the history. It's like what you're saying about Greenstead Church. Even if you've been there, even if you've experienced it, you just kind of take it for what it is, your experience, and don't necessarily look into it. But a
Mhm.
lot of these are really hidden gems with such cool parts of history.
Yeah, I'm so impressed you remember the name of that because I was sitting here trying to think, and I should know. I've been there many times.
Yeah,
I
it's our
do.
only international episode on paranormal in Pennsylvania, so
Oh,
it's
that's
easy for me to
cool.
remember. Yeah.
Isn't it the oldest, one of the oldest churches in the world as well, or something like that?
I think
The
it's
oldest
the
wooden
oldest
church.
wooden
That's
church.
it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Which is why it's amazing to me to hear that your parents got married there. Like it must be spectacular.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. But they got married there because it was my nan's like favorite place to go to,
Mhm.
and that's why they got married there. But yeah, it's very close to where I used to live. I should go there again and yeah, and see. And the soldier that you said that was buried there, the Crusader. I mean, that's
Yeah.
wild. That's wild.
Yeah. If you go back, you'll have to let us know if you have any more experiences
Yeah, a
because
hundred
I'd be
percent,
interested.
100%. Yeah. So Erica, when you was younger, you said you didn't have any experiences. Like your first experience was literally this year.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
wild.
I know. And it's interesting because so my dad was a super huge history buff too, and so we went to these places that like we're visiting now, but in a haunted paranormal context, which has always kind of shocked me. You know, we went to Gettysburg, we did things around Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. That's kind of like where I grew up, and so it was just it's interesting, I think now when Sarah and I went to Nemacolin Castle, which is around here, I think maybe like 50 minutes outside of Pittsburgh, I remember thinking to myself when we got in there, it's been so long since I've been into a mansion or like a museum type thing like this. And I loved it as a kid. And I just never really experienced anything when I was there. And again, I think I might have just been closed off.
Hmm. Yeah. So there was nothing when you was a kid, like no weird noises. Didn't have any imaginary friends or anything like that.
Well, I did have Goofy as an imaginary friend, but I don't think that counts.
It
I
could
used
be.
to make my, I mean, yeah, maybe I did see it. I used to make my parents like put out a second plate of dinner for Goofy. So I don't,
Wow.
that was my only thing. And I guess I was like sort of scared of my basement, but I think that was just like basements are weird. You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
don't think I ever really had any experiences down there either.
Yeah. Interesting. Goofy movie is one of my favorite films. Love that movie.
Oh, such a good movie. I had the biggest crush on his son, Max Goof, when I was
Oh
younger.
wow. Really?
Yeah, I
When
loved him.
I can't remember the words, but the song he done at the end, like the Michael Jackson type song in the
Oh,
film.
no, I don't remember.
I'm sure he done like this cool dance, and I was like, oh man, he's so cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the paranormal.
Yes. So sorry to derail with goofy facts.
It's a
I'm
great
just
film.
imagining like the actual ghost of Goofy sitting at your dinner table
That would be
eating.
freaky.
Oh,
Yes.
God.
I'm gonna call this episode "The Ghost of Goofy."
Yeah,
I
there
do.
you go.
So, difficult question for both of you. And Sarah, I've asked you this before, I'm sure when you was last on the show. But what do you think is going on with the paranormal? What do you think it is? I know nobody knows, nobody's got the answers, but I like to know what people's opinions are on what is going on.
Yeah, we actually went to a talk recently that it was a medium giving her perspective on like what's a spirit versus a ghost versus a shadow figure, which was interesting to hear. And I don't think I've ever separated those entities before in my head. To me, a full-bodied apparition could at some point present as a shadow figure. I don't know that we can distinctly separate them. But to me, it's residual energy of that person that remains for whatever reason. Some people say that it has to be negative. I think it can also be positive. If someone loves a place, then it would make sense that they would want to stay there. So I think it's the residual energy of that person. I always go back to like matter cannot be created or destroyed, right? Energy can't be created or destroyed. So if we think of that in terms of a person's soul and their actual spirit, that's what I think it is. It's something that's remaining on this plane when whatever happens after we die happens, whether it's heaven, whether it's nothing, it's a portion of that energy staying in this plane.
Interesting. Erica, same question to you.
So it's funny that Sarah said that because up until we started really doing this and we looked into the paranormal further than just kind of a distant relationship, I had also thought that a spirit being here meant a negative thing, that they were kind of trapped here. And I agree, I don't think that's the case. I almost feel like, yes, sometimes that might be the case, and we can help, a medium, a psychic, etc., might be able to help them move on. But sometimes I think it's just where the paranormal that we experience is just individuals who decided that they wanted to stay here. The example that I think of the most often when I'm thinking about this is there's a golf course at, I want to say, the Shawnee Inn episode. And there was a couple that just kind of roams the golf course together. And I really like that idea because it just seems like they just decided to be with each other here in this plane, you know? And so I do think, like I said, I do think that there are spirits who might be trapped here, but I think the paranormal is just like a different plane from
Hmm.
us. I think,
Yeah.
maybe there is like an extra thing out there that someone could travel to after death, but I also think maybe it's just right next to us and we
Yeah.
just can't see it,
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. It's like intertwined with us, but obviously, yeah. And
Yeah.
sometimes we
Yeah.
might get a little glimpse, get a feeling for
Yes.
whatever reason. Yeah.
What about
Interesting.
you, Tommy? I'm interested in your perspective.
Well, my opinion changes every day. I'll talk to someone else and they'll tell me their opinion. I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But at the moment, I'm like you guys. I feel like there's a lot going on around us all the time that we can't always see. That's just where I am at the moment. Sometimes we get a glimpse into it. We I don't know, for whatever reason we can at that moment see that entity. I don't know why, but that's where I am at the moment. I feel like there's a lot of different things going on. I feel like the
Mhm.
paranormal's there's a lot to it. I feel what that is, I don't know. But as I say, my opinion changes every day. By the time I put this out, my opinion could be completely different.
Yeah. Yeah. Every time I talk to mediums, I feel like I get such a different perspective and,
Hmm.
then it changes a little bit and here
Hmm.
and there.
Yeah, especially when with medium when they say something that, which I've had many times, when they say something that they just can't know, they just shouldn't be able to
Mhm.
know, and they tell you something, and you're like, how? Like,
Yeah.
I've had people describe the layout of my house, and that's nowhere. You can't find the layout of my house anywhere. Like, I don't put
Right.
a lot of my house on social media. And I don't know how you would do that and how you would know that. You know, it'd be a lucky
Yeah.
guess, and that's wild. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is interesting. I love it. Where do you guys stand with? We're gonna get a bit. You're on Let's Get Freaky. Where do you stand with cryptids and UFOs and the other side of the paranormal that I think is all connected? Oh,
I,
it's gone quiet.
I,
Yeah.
well, yeah, I think it's definitely a part of it all. I think it would be very self-centered to think that UFOs and aliens don't exist. I think there's definitely other things in this massive universe, things that we don't understand. And one theory that I think is really interesting about aliens is that they're here among us,
Hmm.
observing us almost like a zoo, but they move so fast we can't see them. And I'm not saying that I believe that. I just think it's an interesting theory, that we, for whatever reason, our eyes can't pick up on them. I don't necessarily think that's true, but I do think that, aliens, UFOs, etc., must be real. And I think cryptids are another really interesting thing. I do think that they have a place in the paranormal community and are an under discussed, under researched aspect of it.
Hmm.
I know there's a bunch of theories about how they got here, whether they were summoned, they're crossing different planes, etc. But I definitely think there's too many reports on things like Bigfoot or, dogmen to have that not be true.
Hmm. Yeah, that's cool. Erica?
I completely agree. I kind of take the same stance that I do with things that are paranormal. Honestly, it's like maybe not all of the reports are true. Maybe some of the reports can be explained away by scientific things, by nature, by natural things, but I don't think all of them are false. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
I take that stance with both cryptids and aliens and UFOs because like Sarah, I just can't believe that we're the only people, the only things out there.
Hmm. Have you ever seen anything in the sky that you can't explain?
Not really. I'm trying to think of like maybe when I was a kid there was something in the sky. That was my experience, but I don't know.
You remember seeing something as a kid?
No, no. I was saying actually, you know what? Here's the thing. I was in Maryland like 2 weeks ago, and my friend Anna and I were driving and we both looked up and I forget it had to be like maybe 4 or 5 p.m. So it was like starting to get dark and it looked like a UFO in the sky. Like I don't know how it was like this metal plane thing that could have been a plane, but both of us stopped talking to look up and we were like, what is that? I kind of forgot that
Whoa.
happened.
Wow, it's 2 weeks
Yeah, I
ago.
haven't heard that story.
Yeah,
Whoa.
I completely forgot about it.
Okay, few questions.
Yeah.
Did you have any missing time? Did you check the time?
Oh no, we didn't actually check the time. But we
Oh,
were on our way, we were driving home from her office, which usually takes about 45 minutes. And so I don't know that there was lost time because I think we would have like realized it
yeah,
if
yeah.
there was.
The radio didn't stop playing.
No, that did
Oh,
not.
okay. That's wild though that you saw that. And again, going
Yeah.
back to what we were saying, like the knowing, like you know that's something strange. Like when you saw it.
Yes. Yeah. And but like I said, both of us kind of like stopped because we were like, what is this thing above
Yeah.
us? Could yeah, and it just looked like kind of like a metal plane, but it was shaped weird. I don't,
What sort of
yeah.
shape? What sort of shape?
It kind of looked like a plane, sort of that like shape, but
Hmm.
it was metal and it was kind of boxy, if I remember correctly.
Whoa.
Yeah, like kind
Like
of
a,
squared off.
like a metal square box in the sky.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a plane.
It doesn't. We were like, well, I don't know what that is.
Was it moving?
Yes, it was. Kind of like across the sky. So if like our windshield is here, it was like sideways, moving
Mhm.
sideways across the sky.
Whoa. Did you see it go out of view or was you following it for so long and then obviously you're driving, so it's difficult.
So I watched it for maybe about 2 seconds, and then I remember looking at her like, because she was driving, and I looked at her like, "Do you see that? Like, do you also see that?" And so I only looked at it for maybe a few seconds, and then by the time that we like talked about it, we were already kind of we'd already driven past it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's difficult when you're in a moving car. It's difficult as well to. I've seen things when we've been in the car because we're always looking up and trying to see stuff, and you do see. I do think if you're constantly looking out for things in the sky, you will see
Yes.
some stuff that you can't explain.
Yeah, the reason I brought up my childhood is because my dad was a believer in chemtrails, so we spent
We
a
can go
lot
there.
of
We can
time.
go there.
I don't even, so I don't even, I just remember looking up at the sky a ton because he would be like, "Do you see this?" And I'd be like, "Sure, Dad,
Yeah.
sure."
Was he a conspiracy guy?
Not often, to be honest. This was like the biggest thing for him. I really had not, he really was very logical, like a very historical, logical person, but chemtrails got him. He was like
Yeah.
fully invested in them. Not saying that they're not real, just
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
that was the conspiracy theory that he kind of latched
Yeah.
onto.
My man. I
Yeah.
talk, I talk to a lot of, and I do. You look up at them and you're like, what? It is weird. I mean, I guess,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to go down the conspiracy route, but we do on Let's Get Freaky. But
I was gonna
yeah,
say, I'm gonna keep us in conspiracy for a second because I want your opinion on one. What is your opinion on the conspiracy theory that and you might not even know this, that the national parks in America are to hide cryptids?
I love it. I've
Ooh.
heard a lot. I've heard a lot of people talking about that, and I don't know. What do you think of that?
I think I mean, I don't know if the government knows about it then, like that's where I start to get a little
Hmm.
whatever. But I think if there are cryptids here, if I was a cryptid here, I would go live in a national park.
Yeah,
So I
100%.
think it makes sense.
And
I don't know if that's why they're there, but
they do say that like some people believe that the government make these things to protect something
Mhm.
in these parks. portals.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I do find it interesting. I don't know. I don't know if I'd want to think that Bigfoot. If I love Bigfoot, I'm very interested in the Sasquatch. I'd love to think that that is just a real creature that we've not caught up with yet. That is what I really
Mhm.
want it to be. Just a super
Yeah.
intelligent, whatever it is that's evaded people proving it.
Yeah.
That's what I want it to be. But I don't know. Could be something like that.
Yeah.
As you said,
You
enough
have to
people's.
come here and go to the national parks
Oh,
and then
100%. Yeah, I'm going. You get reports here in the UK as well, and that's what I find interesting. You get reports all around the world of these creatures,
Mhm.
and you have done for hundreds and hundreds of years. That's what I find really interesting. When you look
Yeah.
back and they're in every culture, every all around the world. And I think there's got to be something to that as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, that talk where we went with the medium, where she broke down, spirits versus ghost versus shadow figures, there was the other talk there that night, it was all paranormal, was from a Bigfoot society here, and it was a researcher. So he was responsible for going out and researching claims that people would submit. And it was just so interesting to hear, you know, the same location maybe 30, 40 years apart, the same exact descriptions. Like it looks like a white Bigfoot and it looks like this tall, etc. And that's not public knowledge. It's not in a public database. So unless it's passed down from word of mouth, it does beg the question, how are these firsthand sightings still occurring in the same location that are exactly the same? And it was really interesting to hear.
Yeah. That does sound interesting. What's your thoughts on Bigfoot and do you think that are you a believer?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think anything's
Love
possible,
that.
honestly. Yeah.
I've got two scientists here that they are believers in Bigfoot. I love that. I'm here for that
Yeah.
all day.
Yeah.
Has anyone else going back to paranormal spooky stuff? Has anyone else in your team uh, had any experiences that stand out to you guys in the last year recently that's happened that sort of stand out? Has anyone seen anything? Has anyone seen an apparition or anything like that?
I don't think so. Other than David seeing that apparition at the hotel, I don't think so.
Hmm.
But we do have an investigation coming up in December that we're excited about, so I'm crossing my fingers for something there.
Interesting. Can you say what that is? You put a little.
Yes, it's Wildwood Sanatorium in New York, and it was basically this doctor's house that he converted to, I think, 4 or 5 patient rooms, and he used to treat the patients there. And they have haunted dolls there. They have like cameras on the haunted dolls. People can tune into live feeds. Investigators that have been there have said that there's a ton of activity there, specifically the doctor himself. So I'm hoping at least one of us will get to see his apparition while we're there.
Yeah. Awesome.
Hopefully
Awesome.
not me. Hopefully.
Do you not want to see a ghost? Would you like to see a ghost? Like if you could get it's on your
I
terms. It's on your terms.
yeah.
Would you be happy to see one?
I think I would. I think yes. I think I joke about not wanting to or being too scared, but I do think, I think I'm thinking of the wrong saying in this case, but like practice helps. You know what I'm saying? Like the
Hmm.
repetition of doing something I think makes it easier to do. And so I would like to start having more experiences and maybe being more open to it because I think it just helps in all investigations then moving forward. You're not as scared if it's happened before, you know?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Well, it's definitely going to be interesting to see what comes for you guys. It sounds very exciting. Got the new podcast and exciting stuff's coming for sure. Can you tell the listeners where they can find your podcast and everything that you guys are doing?
Yes. So Haunted Atlas, the newest podcast, which is history and hauntings across the United States, can be found on Tuesdays every other week. We have a few episodes already up. We launched on Halloween, and you can find that wherever you get podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, etc. And if you want to see the pictures of the locations, which I always do, you can follow us on Instagram at Haunted US and see the beautiful photos that Brandon takes just to make these abandoned locations look like works of art.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Exciting stuff, guys. Have you got any other Instagram accounts or anything else you want people to follow? If you want to give it a quick plug? No?
Do
Sorry,
you
Erica and I are looking at each other like,
Yeah.
when let's go. Go ahead, you go.
Okay. I'm sorry, Tommy, I'll have to cut this out. Are we able to talk about Pip? Like, should I do Pip?
Yeah, let's talk about Pip.
Is that okay? Okay.
100%. Yeah.
So our other podcast, Paranormal in Pennsylvania, you can also listen wherever you get podcasts as well. And our Instagram is just at Paranormal in Pennsylvania. And yeah, YouTube is great because we post video so you can get to see our faces as we're talking about these things, which always helps. And yeah, our TikTok also at Paranormal in Pennsylvania. And it's been great. I literally can't
Oh,
tell everybody how much I've loved these experiences. It's just been so fun.
it's awesome. That's awesome, guys. I'm going to be sharing the links in the show description so people can find you guys easily. And thank you so much for coming on. I'm excited to see what happens. You guys are welcome to come back anytime. Let us know what spooky stuff happens next time you're out there, and stay safe out there as well.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you
you
so much
so
for having
much.
me on again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming back. You guys are welcome anytime. Just let me know and we can talk more paranormal. Thank you so much,
Yes.
guys. People need to head over and check you out
Thanks.
now. Links will be in the show description. Guys, thank you so much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, make sure you share it where you can. That is a great way to support us. We'll be back very soon for more freaky conversations. In the meantime, stay safe and keep it freaky. Bye for now. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
No, you're fine.